HHDG. Peace, HHDG. We are on another episode of HHDG Media, the podcast. Shout out to everyone tuning in right now through our Facebook group, HHDG, which is Hip Hop Discussion Group, as well as our YouTube channel. Big shout out to our family, our company, HHDG Media Inc., which consists of Rock Vader KB, T. Smith, The Mayor, Skelly Top, and myself, Wiki. As always, you can go and check out our website, which you can see at the bottom of the banner below. And up there, we put up music, our written interviews, as well as also now putting up our live interviews using our YouTube channel. And there's also our merch on there and upcoming events. For tonight, we have a very established artist who I would say came up at the perfect time of hip hop, of a very pro-Black, Pan-African time, which, you know, was a great time for showing solidarity. And hip hop was the perfect avenue for so much of our youth to get engulfed in everything that, you know, that we should be learning about. And this I can't even call him an MC because he's so much more than that, but he continues to spread hip hop culture throughout the world, you know, educating the youth and also continuously showing his skills in the music. Definitely came up in the 90s with his brother, and they definitely made their name known, which we'll talk about that once we get into the interview. And solo wise, continue to make music out there, like the album Connect the Dots, and more recently, which we're going to talk about, he just recently released a maxi single in November, which is titled Life is What You Make It, featuring a few notable artists, which we'll talk about once we get into the interview. And just overall talk about what is important. Oops, sorry about that. What is important about keeping hip hop culture thriving and not putting so much of the negativity in the forefront, which seems to be plaguing a lot of the mainstream, which that's a business model of what we really don't want, because there's so much more to hip hop that, you know, is shown throughout the world how influential it is in so many avenues and so many countries. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dumi Right. Peace.
Hey, peace. What's going on? How you doing? How's everybody? Shout out to everybody out there listening, watching.
Doing good.
Really good to be here.
Absolutely. Definitely looking forward to speaking with you. I learned that Zimbabwe set a Guinness World Record for the most official languages. Did you know about that?
Nah, I know. So we have Shona, Ndebele, and then English, you know, as like the mediums of communication out there. But I hadn't heard about the Guinness, the Guinness thing.
I think it was like 16 or 15 languages that they said are in your native country.
Oh, well, heard you had. Nah,
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I was not aware of it because like those are like the main, like I was saying, that, you know, people in the cities I lived in were speaking.
So being that we're speaking about languages, on the song "Doing Damage" in my native language, what language were you speaking in? Shona?
So it was actually Ndebele primarily, which is the
Hmm.
language that my family origin. So Ndebele, which is interestingly enough, with the hip hop connection, we talk a lot about Zulu, at least in the
Hmm.
classic hip hop era and with the pioneers. So Zulu and Ndebele are like sister languages. So it was primarily Ndebele, but also some Shona mixed in there because we families from Bulawayo in the south, but we were like in high school and everything when we were coming up, and middle school equivalent of middle primary school and secondary school in Harare, which is where they spoke Shona. So we mixed that in there too a little bit in that song, and it's
Okay.
it's interesting enough. Doing damage was just a lyric in a song, and
Hmm.
somebody at the label pick. It might have even actually been Funk Incline, and we'll talk about him a little bit as we get through it. But somebody heard the line and was like, "Oh, that would really be cool if y'all did damage in your language, on a whole song." And we're like, "Oh, okay, let's explore that." And ended up being kind of like the main song on the EP that we released.
That's amazing. So tell us, that connection with Mr. Lawn and the U.S. and Zimbabwe at that time.
Yeah, so if I was to like write a treatment or a script and be like, hey, somebody out in Hollywood or whatever, here's a story about a rapper that came from Africa and came to the US and got a record deal. And to tell the real story of how Zimbabwe legit came to be, the first thing they'd probably say is, nah, that's too unbelievable. That could never happen. So, you know, but that's kind of how it went down. We were in Zimbabwe. I was in high school at the time, into the elements of hip hop. Initially started off as like b-boys, breakers, and dancing and doing that a part of the culture, and then started getting into rapping and rhyming. Ended up writing a letter to we had gotten copies, through friends and people, relatives overseas, of a magazine called The Source, and there was a column by a gentleman by the name of Dave Klein, who went by Funkin' Klein. Again, it was called Gangsta Limping with Funkin' Klein. And he would write about hip hop happenings and things going on. And he'd also put out a call for people, hip hoppers worldwide, and be like, "Yo, send me some hip hop noise. What's going on in your area?" And so we wrote to him, and through some correspondence, let him know that we were also rappers in Africa. And as you mentioned at the top of your show, this was, during the height of the Afrocentric era. So you're talking about Jungle Brothers Heavy, King Son, talking about what it means to be black, Lakim Shabazz, you name it, a lot of,
Yep, X-Clan, all of them, yeah.
X Clan, all, definitely, with that positive, uplifting, back to Africa, know your history and knowledge and roots. So anyway, it was really good timing. So he was interested in hearing what we were doing, and we told him what we were doing, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to hear something." And we sent him some demos, and he admitted, I guess, like later on, like he had thought, like, "Oh, it's cool. There's some people out there, these cats out in Africa say they're rapping," and he had no idea what to make of it or what it was gonna sound like. But when he heard it, he was like, "Oh, now this is good. Like y'all got some skills." So he was like, "If you ever come to the U.S., look me up." He was working at an organization called Red Alert Productions at the time, but he was also on his way to take a job in Hollywood, with Hollywood Records, starting a rap label called Hollywood Basic. And
Hmm.
so once he heard our stuff, he was like, "Yo, I'd love to bring this to the label and try to make something happen."
Wow.
When we came to the U.S., because we were actually coming to the U.S., I was, going to pursue higher education, go to college, and also pursue, musical dreams and endeavors. And so we met up with him, played some more refined demos, some more elaborate tracks we'd laid down, since the stuff we had sent him initially was kind of rudimentary, and so we got some more advanced, professionally produced demos. And he was like, "Yeah, this is definitely something I want to bring to the label." And so he also wanted to, like, he was in connection and contact with a lot of up and coming dope producers on the scene through other groups he was working with on the
Hmm.
label he was starting. Um, So there was a group called production outfit called Solid Productions. They had done some work on the Lifers group, which was Lifers in Rahway Prison. And then speaking of Mr. Long from the Black Sheep, he's like, "Yo, there's this new group coming up called the Black Sheep, and they're hot. They're like part of the Native Tongue family,
Yeah.
and so it'll be an ideal fit." He's like, "But Mr. Long got beats." He's like, "I want to connect you with him." He's like, "I told him about you. I let him hear some of your stuff, so want him to cook up something." So Mr. Long ended up creating a song. We worked on a song with him that he produced called "To Bead or Not to Bead," and like we talked about his Afrocentric era, and you know the whole "I'm gonna get you sucker" gold chain wars and gold chain gang. So it's kind of like, you're gonna rock beads, you know, and medallions, you know, because
Yeah.
like the, you know, Jungle Brothers would say, black medallions, no gold. Um, you know, on the Buddy song. But so to be, to, you know, play on the Shakespeare, to be or not to be, it was to bead or not to bead. And so that was a song that was on the record. But yeah, so through that, you know, a series of coincidences and unlikely events that ended up happening just because we took a chance on ourselves, you know, and bet on ourselves, and weren't afraid to, you know, just ask the question, you know, and put forth what we had and tell our story. Um, we ended up signing with Hollywood Basic as the group Zimbabwe Legit, and that
That's
was back.
amazing.
I guess we signed in like 90, 91, and
Okay.
then the EP dropped in 1992.
Yeah. Hmm. That's amazing. And that label also, for those listening, had Organized Confusion on there, as well
Yep,
as Booyah Tribe.
yep. And then Raw Fusion, which was Money
Yeah.
B and DJ
Mm-hmm.
Fuse from Digital Underground, had a
Yep.
side project on the label.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm. You ever think about writing a book?
All the time, man. All the
Okay.
time. And definitely even thinking about, and I mean, this is longer term, but saying it, you know, putting it out there, you know, something in the future. It should make a real interesting script for a movie, man. You know, it's cinematic, like just the adventures and the hoops. And also, like I said, the unlikelihood, right? Like, how
Yeah.
do you connect in the late 80s, early 90s, you know, prior to the internet, prior to, you know, like online MP3 files and email, with
Mm-hmm.
somebody where you're recording a cassette and putting it in an envelope and hoping somebody on the other side, it was going to get it in 2.5 or 3 weeks via postal mail
Also,
and
yeah.
listen to it and actually respond and send you a letter back 2 or 3 weeks later. And just how things just, and the fact that he was writing for a magazine, so it might have just ended there with a cool write up, you know, in the source saying, "Hey, here's some guys rapping." But as it turns out, he was on his way to Cali to start a rap label, and he was also a cat that was looking for like new and innovative stuff, like kind of the groups you called out, Organized Confusion, Booyah. He wasn't trying to do the same old stuff. He was trying to do stuff that was new and innovative, and that's kind of what captured his attention with the Zimbabwe Legit project, because we were bringing our perspective, you know, as b boys, MCs, you know, rap fans, hip hop fans, and artists in Africa and Zimbabwe, you know, coming and sharing our perspective, but also incorporating rhythm and culture from African music and sounds. You know, not only just Zimbabwean music, but the sounds of like Fela Kuti and Hugh
Mm-hmm.
Masekela and all those influences that we'd grown up with. You know, bringing that as influence into the music to blend and mix that into it. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting adventure. So yeah, it must be chronicled at some point, be it a book, be it a film. Something has to happen with
Yeah,
it.
it definitely has to happen. Yeah. That's that's an amazing story. And just you explaining of sending via mail at that time. That's it's just mind boggling because I know how long things would take, and like you said, you just never know. With a record label, how much they would getting in the mail, and how much
Right,
they probably wouldn't even take into consideration just looking at it. You just toss it to
right.
the side.
You know, and the fact that would the person even read the letter, you know what I mean? You send the
Right.
letter, and we're in high school, you know what I mean? It's not like we had like a production company and we sent, it was just like us in high school being like,
Hmm.
"Hey, here's what we're doing, check us out," you know? And
Yeah.
obviously we had our swagger and confidence because we were like, yo, we got skills, we're nice, he listened to us. But the fact that it actually unfolded that way and ended up happening was real dope. So
Yeah.
was glad that all came together for sure.
Definitely. Now, um, just the journey in itself, you and your brother going from Zimbabwe to the U.S. I mean, that's a big journey. And was there any family that was already here, or did you come over here with family?
Yeah, so just kind of a quick it's a lengthy story, but I'll try to
Okay.
make the abridged version. So
Hmm.
before 1980 Zimbabwe got independence. Prior to that, we were under essentially like apartheid rule or whatever. So there was actually a war of independence or for independence that was happening. And so in the 60s and 70s, a lot of uh, black folks that wanted opportunities or wanted to, better themselves, realized that they should find places where they can go outside and get higher education and live in exile and organize, strategize. And so my parents were among those. My dad had actually been organizing, as part of the liberation struggle. And he was an educator. And so his thing was like, let's get
Nice.
knowledge and education and the foundation that we can
Hmm.
build. And when the country gets independent, we can educate people and build, the nation up that way. And that was his vision for it. So him and my mom were in upstate New York in Syracuse in the 60s and 70s. So 3 out of the 4 kids were born actually upstate New York. And then I was
Okay.
like 4 years old. We left and went back because they wanted to go back home. So initially we went to Zambia,
Hmm.
um, late 70s, and we were there for a couple years. And my dad was going back and forth to Rhodesia at the time, which became Zimbabwe upon independence. Um, and once independence, happened, we moved as a family to Zimbabwe, and so I was there from like early, grade school, whatever, all the way through high school, um, and so that was all of my formative years. Discovering hip hop all happened, while on the continent all the way through high school, and then I came back to the U.S. to go to college. Actually, following the footsteps of my sister, my older sister, Tembi had left Zimbabwe when she graduated high school to go. And, she actually went back to Syracuse University
Okay.
and to study, and so kind of followed her path. So she was out here. There's a couple of like family friends and stuff that were out in the U.S.
That's
But
great.
the parents were still, in Zimbabwe when we came
Hmm.
over. So it was like you said, long journey. Kind of leaving home, at 18 to kind of go find your way and, figure things out. But luckily, there were some people, that we could, connect with or be in contact with as far as a support system.
That's great.
So
Great.
that
Mm.
was good that way.
Nice. And in 1995, you graduated at Virginia Tech University.
Yep. Yeah. And actually, I ended up at Virginia Tech. Shout out to the Hokies, Virginia Tech. Um, the reason, and people are like, how did you end up at Virginia Tech from Zimbabwe? Like, how random was that? My parents knew a professor
Oh.
from, I think he's originally from Botswana, but lived in Zimbabwe, but a
Hmm.
family friend that was a professor at Virginia Tech. So it's like, yeah, worst come to worst, you at least know somebody. You're not going into this sea of 20,000 people and not knowing anybody. So that was real helpful. That's how I ended up at Virginia Tech. But
Okay.
yeah, and then in '95, and so all the Zimbabwe legit, the recordings, the record deal happened while I was at Virginia Tech. So it was, as you can imagine, like an intriguing, exciting time, right? On one hand, pursuing a college degree in education, and then also having this record thing in the background. I remember when we signed with Hollywood Basic, after we did the demos and all the process, and the label decided they wanted to move forward, and we recorded the project. The first tour we went on was to Japan with Organized
Wow.
Confusion, and I believe I left from Virginia Tech because my roommate drove me to Roanoke Airport, and I remember it was like, "Well, we gotta get on the flight. We gotta," and we were trying to find something, and we're like, "Oh, we can't be late." And I just remember him doing like 90, going up 81, or doing 81 on 81, and going up to the Roanoke Airport so he could bring me, so I could go on this tour, which was really like our first professional performance experience. Like we'd been performing, for years and years, in Zimbabwe, but never like with like a label backing as a part of
Yeah.
an industry
Mhm.
showcase in a foreign land, so it was real exciting. And we were with Organized Confusion, who are like masters of the mic, and
Amazing.
stage. So it was a great learning experience too, to kind of start that way, and kind of get thrown into the fire, and like, all the stuff we'd been training for came to bear in those moments.
That's amazing. Mm. So definitely, education is part of the family. I definitely appreciate that. But even on a grander scale of, like you were saying, embracing the music side and the education, you have continued to keep them together. And this is spawned to so much in your life. You've done, what was it? I don't remember you did a
So
teaching in
yeah, so
Thailand.
yeah, so it's a next level cultural exchange, which was like beautiful to go teach hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, in the words of Biggie, whoever thought hip hop would take it this far? And that was actually, it's funny that you say that because like family in the education space, my mom was in nursing education. Um, I didn't really start out, obviously, like my degree wasn't in education. Although I did take like technology education classes, but I wasn't like thinking in terms of like I'm gonna be an educator. And then from
Hmm.
a music standpoint, like I'm an MC, I'm an artist, I'm a performer. I wasn't really teaching it, and until it kind of happened like organically. Like I didn't set
Okay.
out to be like, hey, I want to teach hip hop. But as you start doing showcases and speaking engagements, and kind of the stuff we do is more cerebral, so it's kind of lends itself well to like discussions and kind of evaluation, as opposed to just like, oh, we're in a club and we're rocking and have a good time, and you leave and don't remember anything I said, but you had a really good time, which is fine too. It's more like, well, let's digest what the words are about. Like you said, with the doing damage, what were you really saying? What was the motivation for that? So doing presentations and speaking about stuff like that kind of gave a pathway to do hip hop education.
Hmm.
And so we ended up like as Zimbabwe legit, even we'd perform at like festivals, cultural festivals, because there was that like interest. The type of radio programs that would want to talk to us wouldn't just necessarily be music programs. It's kind of educational because they want people to understand the background and the history and the connection, and how we came to be. And then also, working with other international artists and organizations. So we'd end up performing at places like the Whitney Museum in New York, and we did a
Hmm.
showcase with VH1. Grand Wizard Theodore DJ'd for that one, so that was just like mind blowing. Like Grand
Wow.
Wizard Theodore was DJing for us to perform. My brother did shows at annual show at Brooklyn. My brother Akim used to do shows. I think he had a 10-year run at Brooklyn Academy of Music in
Wow.
Brooklyn and New York, and so it was stuff where hip hop audiences would listen and hear it, but it'd almost be broader than that because people who just had a curiosity and a thirst for knowledge would kind of come to check it out, and even non-traditional
It's
hip
all
hop
did it.
folks
Yeah.
would be like, "Oh, word, this is dope," because it's so many. It's it's bigger. Like to quote Dead Prez, it's bigger than hip hop, and so I actually almost organically came to the teaching, um, and through a friend came to the next level program, which is the program you're talking about, where I got the opportunity to go to Thailand in 2016 and teach emceeing for like 3 to 4 weeks, in different parts of Thailand, and especially in underserved areas, because like Bangkok gets all the big concerts and all the stars. So we went to like
Hmm.
areas that see less of the you know uh, big events and initiatives, and so it was good to like kind of bring it to them and go teach students about emceeing and performance and about the history of hip hop, about our background in history, and kind of pull that all together. So yeah, now it's a beautiful thing. And then out of that, uh, some of the folks that were coordinators and organizers of the next level in the Department of State. It's a program run out of the University of North Carolina. He was like, "Hey, did you want to come down and speak to some classes about your background, history, and experience?" And I did that. And he was like, "Yo, you're really good at this. Would you like to do more of it?" And I'd on my own also spoken at like Howard University to some classes, on music and culture,
Mhm.
and American University. So he's like, "Hey, let me put you in touch with some of my colleagues," and so I ended up doing a ton more of it. So organically, that just kind of became like a new thing within my portfolio of actually hip hop education and delivering speaking engagements, performances, and workshops at colleges and universities. So I've done a ton of them. I've even returned just last month to Virginia Tech and did a panel discussion on the history of hip hop at Virginia Tech and kind of how things started and what we did, as well as a workshop, studio recording and songwriting workshop, and have done that at
That's
schools,
great.
universities, boys and girls clubs, all over the map to all different types of audiences.
That's great. And I feel that that's how it should be. It shouldn't just be the youth, because no matter what age group or background you come from, people are gonna have an interest. People, just like hip hop music, it's worldwide now. So people are gonna want to know more about it. And what better way than you speaking on it from your own experience, and then
Word.
providing your experience with the education as well. But that's great how like-minded people, see something in someone and give them that opportunity.
Yeah, nah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, I even did a thing that I initiated with the. I'm in Fairfax County out here. The Fairfax County Library System. I approached them with a proposal for a songwriting workshop that I dubbed the School of MCing, like the rap writing, School of Rap, songwriting workshops for like youth. And so we did a series of those at different libraries in the area for kids, and they loved it. Like it was like I loved it too. It was like a great experience, a great exchange of ideas. I think a great learning opportunity because it's kind of a unique offering as well. Like and the library has like book talks, they have like different entertainment things, but they don't really have like MCs come in and drop, gems and drop
Okay.
knowledge and teach people about the art and the culture. A lot of times people see it from afar. They see it on TV and kind of see, the glitzy, glamorized version. But this is kind of sitting down with creative minds and being like, hey, how do you write a song? What's your motivation? What's your inspiration? How do you tell your story? How do you speak your truth? How do you gain the confidence to tell an audience about an idea that you have? So all those things go into it. So and once again, back to that phrase, bigger than hip hop. It's something that they can even use in a job interview or in a presentation. In terms
Hmm.
of confidence, how do you express who you are and what you do? How do you have an elevator pitch that explains who you are to somebody? How do you convey an idea succinctly and clearly? How do you give a message? Because that's originally what hip hop is, right? It's just sharing. I mean, it's go back to the message, right? Which is one of the songs that inspired me. It's like, how do you tell somebody a story about a situation you're going through so that they can understand but also relate
Yep.
and
Hmm.
kind of see that picture through the words that you convey and the words that you rap, of what the situation is.
Yeah. Hmm. It's amazing. Um, Sticking with the education And also, I think this is part of critical thinking. The pitch and flow
Hmm.
competition that you were part of. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and so I got to shout out my man Thomas DeBass. He actually went to Virginia Tech too. Our paths crossed like edge, whatever, like ships in the night, if you will. Like we didn't really link up at Virginia Tech, but we were like, hey, you went to Virginia Tech? I did too. But anyway, he's like a real innovative and creative thinker, and works with a lot of entrepreneurs and incubator startup different initiatives and concerns. And so he had an idea after seeing like the business pitch contest that he had witnessed. They give like business pitch contests. They'll give like the founder of the startup. If people kind of think of it as kind of like the Shark Tank or whatever, you
Hmm.
got this many minutes to present your business idea and tell people why it's a great idea, what you do, what you accomplished, what the benefits are, and what are the selling points of it. But he was like, it would be great to use the medium of hip hop and rap to convey that story, because again, it lends itself to that. It's a really good way, to tell the story, but it's also a great way to make people remember your product, your service, and what you do. Because if you can convey it in a song, what better way to share that story? So we talked about what his idea was and what it should look like. I helped kind of formulate and orchestrate kind of the strategy of what it would look like. And so what it ended up being was they took 6 sustainable entrepreneurs of different types. So one was like a solar irrigation, another one was like a solar cooking, and different stuff. I had an entrepreneur in the initial pitch and flow that utilized women in Liberia that had sewing skills but didn't have jobs to sew uniforms for kids so that they could attend schools, for especially kids that couldn't afford to purchase uniforms that were required for schools. So
Hmm.
taking these different entrepreneurs and telling their story to an audience, making it like in a battle format, so each person gets to present their pitch and flow of the rap, and you kind of get with the entrepreneur, get the lowdown on what they do, what their mission is, what their accomplishments are, and then you make a song with it. And so we had 6 MCs, 6 entrepreneurs represented. The initial pitch and flow was super crazy dope. They're both dope, but the initial one because it was new. We did it at the Kennedy Center. MC Light was the host. D Nice was the DJ. Stretch Armstrong, DJ Stretch Armstrong was one of the judges. So it was pretty epic, and
That's amazing.
we all presented our case for it. I ended up being the runner-up in that contest. Um, and then they decided they wanted to do it again. I think two years later,
Hmm.
at South by Southwest,
Oh.
and so we assembled. I was a returning participant, but then assembled 5 other artists, and a whole different set of entrepreneurs. And I was paired with Cambridge Industries, which is an organization, a company, entrepreneur, where they turn trash into electricity in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I'm gonna say that again. They turn trash into electricity to
Hmm.
power the city in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Crazy, right? So they're taking this overwhelming amounts of trash and garbage that are all over the city, piled up in landfills, and obviously is a health hazard and an environmental hazard. Taking that and using clean technology to create electricity, to incinerate it and transform it, with no waste, and no harmful pollutants or anything for the environment. Using clean and green technology. So I had to write about that, and so I mean that just in itself is like exciting and interesting, right? So that
Yeah.
was like a joy to be like, oh, I gotta write a rap about that. So it was real dope. So it was like trash piled up on every block. Wonder will it ever stop? ticking time bomb, check the clock. Gotta think outside the box. Old way of thinking, gotta switch it. All this pollution, gotta fix it. Here's the impact in case you missed it. Let's get into a few specifics. And then just breaking it down like that. Won that contest hands down. And it was really good because it kind of also opened my mind to be like, why don't I be the explainer in chief? Why don't I use this
Hmm.
more and more? And I had been doing that in my raps anyway. Um, but it was just real dope to like kind of be able to again, think outside the box and do something different, beyond the traditional hip hop performance or presentation or song. So through pitch and flow, that was dope. And then actually subsequent to that, in the education space, organization at Virginia Commonwealth University, they've got a program called Code Beats, where they teach computer programming principles to middle schoolers. So it's out of Virginia Commonwealth University, and they have like
That's the way
classes,
to go.
but
Yeah,
they teach middle schoolers computer coding principles, especially in underserved and lower income areas, through making beats. So they learn principles of Python and loops and all different concepts of computing through making beats. And so they have brochures and everything and information on their website.
that's
When I
great.
got with them, they asked me, they were like, "Now, could you explain this in a rap?" And I was like, I think I can. And so we linked up, and I put together two songs actually, over beats that they'd made in the program, which was cool, to kind of explain what Code Beats was all about. And we did like a launch party at VCU and had the kids come out, and it was super dope. And my favorite part of it was, after the show, there was a mom, and she's like, her son was super hyped. He loved the performance, he loved the whole event, and she said she had told him there's this computer programming camp, and she wanted to go get information because that's what the event was like, the launch for the computer programming Code Beats camp. And he was like, nah, I don't want to go. I don't. It sounds boring. I don't want to go. And she's like, nah, come on, it's gonna be cool. And they're gonna have music and performers. And she's like, afterwards, he was all in. He's like, where do we sign up, Mom? Sign me up. Sign me up. How do I be a part of it? And so that's just beautiful to see, like from inception to execution, and come together that way.
Hmm. That's amazing. Yeah, I definitely I gotta look up the turning the trash into electricity.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, they got a video, and I'll send you the link to the
Okay,
video we put together. It was pretty ill too.
appreciate that. Hmm. MCing, I mean, we know that this is where you excel at. But as we're speaking right now, we can see behind you got some graffiti skills going on back there.
Yeah, I won't take credit for anything but the
Okay,
name, right?
all
That's
right.
Dumi right on the check-in. But it goes to the global collaboration. So actually, this b-boy MC DJ crew out of Russia blessed me with the logo. We've been collaborating on a couple of different projects with them, plus other MCs and artists from all over, from Brazil, from Ghana, from Chile, from you name it, the UK, Australia, MCs from like all over the globe, through a collective called Hip Hop Loves. So
Mm,
we had done a bunch of different initiatives and collaborations. And I saw, because he'd always post up like him and his crew, with the graffiti writing, and I was like, yo, that would be so ill if I got a logo, if y'all would cook up a logo. And so he cooked up this illness back there. So that's the
mhm.
new official Do Me Right logo.
Okay.
Shout out to Rocket Gun 56 out there that put that together. But that was real dope. But yeah, that's kind of been my steez. Like, working with artists from across the globe, doing collaborations, because it's just fun. The posse cut is like my favorite thing as an MC in hip hop, right? You
Yeah.
get, if I think about the headbanger, or you think about scenario, or you name it, Dwick, whatever, it's always like the best 16 or the best bars and collaboration from different crews. So I really love doing that, especially with artists from different countries, because they bring fresh perspective, sometimes even different languages on the track, and so it's always real cool. I did a song actually called Unity, fittingly, with MCs from these different countries, like rocking rhymes in different languages. So someone spitting in Spanish, somebody else is spitting, in English, somebody else is spitting in French, and just putting it all together. And so that's kind of been my lifeblood too, is kind of doing the work. And all the projects we do aren't just like us being like, yo, we the dopest, yo, I'm the dopest here. Um, Braggadocio, which again is fine, but the
It's part of it.
initiatives we've done is have been around. So we did one around called Stop Shooting, volumes 1 and 2, about gun violence, in the
Mhm.
U.S. but also globally, and the issues that it is, and suggested solutions. We did a project with the Ali Center out of Louisville, where we made songs around Ali's 7 principles, and so just different things like that, just to again keep it fresh, and keep spreading the word, if you will, and letting people know kind of what it's all about, and going beyond the music, and kind of like you know still making dope tracks, because that's the thing I say. It doesn't, if you make a whack track and it's too preachy and the beat's not hitting, no one's gonna pay attention. But if you make like a dope track and you got something to say in there too, perfect combination, unstoppable.
Yeah. Mm. Making this effort to globally reach out to so many people and educate them like this. Tell us some of the feedback that people have personally given to you, like how you have influenced them to possibly go into education in the same route with hip hop and education.
Yeah, so I mean, it was real cool in Thailand, like interesting experience, because in the first area we are in, Suratani University setting, um, the students weren't necessarily at the university, it was just people from the community that they'd reached out to and let know about the event. Um, had a whole mix array of people who rapped, people who listened to rap, but never did it before. People that were like more singers, but also were into rap.
Mhm.
So it's like a nice broad cross section. And then we had the challenge in that first area of the language barrier, because not everyone was fluent in English. And so one of the first things that we were talking about was like, hey, it's cool, rap in Thai. You know what I mean? If that feels more natural and it's easier for you to express yourself, go for it. Because initially they were like, oh, do we have to rap in English? And it's like, nah, not at all. Like, I want to know what you're saying because I'm
Yeah.
curious and I'm interested. But if that feels natural to you, definitely do that. And then we went to Chiang Rai for a second set of workshops, and had different kind of more experienced MCs in that class, but also had like a b-boy, popper and b-boy in the class. And he said he was like, he had the choice to go to the b-boy class, to go to the DJ class, to go to the production class, to go to the MCing class. And he was like, hey, I really want to know about the history of hip hop and the origins, and the reason why. He's like, so that's why I'm in the MC class, because I want to expand my horizons. And further, he also had a dance school. He said he felt the importance. So that was kind of some nice positive reinforcement and feedback of why this work is important, because people want to be able to carry it on and relay it. It's like when you leave, it shouldn't stop there. People should be able to carry on what you've taught, and either use that to further their musical career, or else to educate somebody else or pass it along. And so that's been kind of a beautiful kind of feedback loop, to see how it impacts people and what they do with it, and you know how that inspires them. Worked with some dancers in Thailand, and this was really cool, because after I left, I stayed in touch with them like through social media, and I
Mhm.
had sent them one of my tracks, and I was like, hey, it would be real cool if y'all just cell phone video recorded yourselves, breaking to this song that I put together. Just kind of continue the collaboration. And so they put together a cool video, breaking to the song that I did. And
That's nice.
then they later hit me up and they were like, yo, we're glad we did that, thank you so much. They're like, we used that video to get a sponsorship, and we got somebody to sponsor us off of that video that we did. So it's kind of, again, reinforcement to be like, hey, the work that we're doing is actually impacting people, right? It's not just like we talked and went away and they did whatever they did and we did whatever we did. So I think that's just been really cool in being able to connect and also kind of build community. You know, I can't necessarily reach Brazil if I'm not there or if I haven't had the opportunity to travel there. But if I collaborate with people there that are doing similar things, it kind of gets to propagate, that uplifting, to be frank, the uplifting
Yeah,
and positive elements of the culture, and let them see it, because obviously the mainstream flows worldwide and globally, and so it's important that the undercurrents of what we're doing continue to be heard and seen. And so that's kind of been a way to reinforce that message, and connect with like-minded people that are doing similar work, that either do workshops in their country, and like I spoke about, the crew in Russia. There's folks in Brazil doing work that I'm connected with, folks in the UK doing workshops, and so we exchange, thoughts. We have panels sometimes to chop it up about what each other are doing, what thoughts and ideas are. Because I think that's important too. You know what I mean? I don't think hip hop should just exist. I think we
it is
should continue to think about it, innovate on it, share ideas, and push it forward. Think outside the
always
box,
keep it
push the
creative. Yeah.
envelope. Yeah, and change the game, and not just wait for things to happen to us. Make things happen.
Hmm.
And change how things are done based on the people that are practitioners on the ground actually doing it. Versus somebody that's just looking from the outside and being like, hey, we're this magazine and we're going to tell you who the top 50 rappers are, and we're really not connected to the culture, but this is what we think because of commercial success. This is who's
Hmm.
the top. And it's like, nah, we're the people doing it. We see it, we know it, and so this is what we think is important. And so being able to do that and carry that on is super important.
Very important. Yeah. I want to give a shout out to DJ Missile out of Bangkok, Thailand. She she goes on Twitch pretty much daily, almost every day. And
Word.
in the past 2 days, she was showing her recordings of a beach party out in Thailand earlier this year, where they had a b-boy event, and Shortcut from the Beat Junkies was out there DJing as well.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, so it's always great to see other countries embracing the culture in many ways like that, not just the music.
Word, nah, that's dope. Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't be mad if they put some "Do Me Right" on blast, like, spun it, let the folks at the events, hear what we're doing, because,
Hmm.
like I said, we're definitely keeping the culture elevated and innovative with what we do.
Definitely, definitely. Now with MCing, there's always a creative push, but not every MC goes that route. I read a quote not too long ago about your father explaining about a person that's constantly cursing has no imagination. And I mean, we have a lot of music with consistent profanity in it and not much, substance to it. Um, you are an artist that shows, you know, that it's not necessary to curse. But what I do want to show is how effortlessly you did your own version of Biggie's 10 crack commandments to 10 rap commandments.
Right, right.
So let's give the people a glimpse of that.
Oh, so you want to play it or you want me to spit it?
No, I'm gonna play it.
Okay, I was gonna be like,
Been in this game for years, quintessential professional. Ride so many spots, even ones unconventional. There's a couple of rules you won't find in the manual. Giving you some jewels, you might find them to be valuable. Straight out the gate with rule number one: be true to yourself and represent where you're from. Rule of thumb: don't rap about a life if you don't live it. It's gonna be real awkward when them gangsters pay a visit. Number two: been true since the days of old. If you wanna be on point, you need that breath control. Number three: this might cause some controversy. You have to write rhymes to call yourself an MC. Number four: from me to you, and this is quite true. If you want to see real feedback, don't just ask your crew. You might write a song, and if it ain't all that, can you trust your boys to give you the straight facts? If you want to get better when you step in the booth, get some people around you that'll give you the truth. Number five: this is when you need to survive. Your album was hype, but can you rock it live? Even if you got a show and you know so and so, it doesn't mean a damn thing if you can't do it at a... I've been in this game for years.
the 10 rap commandments. We gotta let them know.
Now, where did you perform that at?
So that was, oh man, that was like such a epic performance. That was at the National African American History Museum of History and Culture in D.C.
Oh, okay.
If you haven't been, for anybody out there, it's such an incredible museum and experience. You'll need like a huge block of hours because that place is so massive and there's so much
Yeah.
from sports to music to entertainment to history to the oh man, it's just it's so deep and just so impactful. So anyway, they did a hip hop 50th anniversary of hip hop block party over the summer, and I was privileged to be one of the performers, performing like in the main auditorium, really main uh, entry place, like just the whole epicenter of when you come into the museum on the stage there. And so I was performing with my homie DJ RBI, had one of my students actually, Ty Lackey, on saxophone, performing just kind of experience from an MC perspective. And it was cool because they also said they didn't just want like somebody just to come up and perform songs and bounce. They said they wanted somebody that can also talk about the process and the background and the music and like explain it, and kind of break it down for folks. And I was like, hey, that's right up my alley. That's kind of what I do anyway, and I love to do. So it was real a beautiful experience rocking the house there. Queen Latifah headlined the show on the main stage outside. They had so many like luminaries. Fab Five Freddy, I think, gave a talk, a panel, and there was just like a gazillion other people performing and rocking. But it was real cool, and what better way, on this 50th anniversary of hip hop, to to break down the 10 rap commandments, because not everybody so you gotta break it down. If we're talking about hip hop education, let's educate them. Let's break it down.
Yeah, that was great. Hmm. Um, when it comes to live performances, is there anything that you do a little different from when you're recording music?
Yeah, I think live for me, I've been big on and just like watching shows, studying the greats, and kind of breaking down that wall between the artist and audience. They're obviously in the crowd watching, but kind of bringing them into the show, getting that call and response. Obviously the black church tradition, African tradition of, making sure the people are listening and following along. If you think of the, preacher or somebody, an orator, relaying a story. It's not just like I'm gonna just talk and talk and talk and you're just gonna listen, listen, listen. It's like I need you to be involved. I need to know that you're with me. So that's a big part of it. And then also making a spectacle, right? Like I don't know how many times people are like, oh yeah, we want you to come and rap. Oh yeah, just send us your beats and then show up and rap. And I'm like, nah. If possible, I'd love to bring my DJ. I'd love to bring a vocalist with me. I'd love to bring a musician, and just something to change it up so it's not just that same format of a guy with the mic and the beats playing recorded in the background. And sometimes it's necessary for the format to do that, obviously. But if there's space to make it more dynamic, especially now, right? Because we have the ability, we have the technology, as they used to say, old school heads, $6 million man, gentlemen, we have the technology. We can do it, right? And so, because I remember back in the day, I'd have my show music on a DAT tape. After we leave the studio, we'd ask the engineer to put the instrumentals on a DAT tape, which was linear, right? And then it was also fixed. And then even when we went to CD, it's non-linear, but you can skip from this track to that track, but it's still just playing the track. Now when I have, and shout out to DJ RBI, one of the best to do it.
Yes, he is.
The DC music scene. But working with him has been really cool because, we'll start rocking the song. If the audience ain't right, we can stop and pull it back, make sure they got the hook down or that they're with us on the chant. Or if I segue into, oh yeah, by the way, I did this other song, and he'll just throw it in automatically, and we might just give him a teaser of something else. So it's real cool to be dynamic. In the studio, I think it's more like of a rigid, it's almost like writing a book. It's like, okay, what's the message I want to convey? What does it need to look like? I'm obviously I'm projecting and I'm articulating and I'm spitting, but I'm not necessarily as animated, because when I'm on the mic and recording, you want it to be crisp or whatever. So you kind of, vibing with it, but you're not. Yeah. Whereas on stage, it's like I want to run left to right, and watching, the greatest of the greats. You see them, if you've seen Busta Rhymes perform, or if you've seen any of these dope MCs on stage that put on a good stage performance, KRS-One, it's dynamic, it's energetic, it's big, it's changing. Obviously in the studio you want to capture a crisp recording that people can listen to into eternity, right? Like you want it to sound right. You've got the opportunity to do multiple takes. You got opportunity to do background vocals and overdubs, and also being in the studio with a lot of the greats has helped with that, where I see okay, I peep out how they do that or whatever, and you can break up a verse into parts because you're doing it, whereas on stage it's like go, right? You just gotta spit the 10 rap commandments. Like I gotta make sure I have them down, whereas if I'm in the studio and I'm like number 7, okay, I could punch in, or I've got some leeway, right? There's some forgiveness because it's not live happening right then. But when it's live, you gotta be on point. You gotta know the words. You gotta, hit it. And it's good to do that in the studio too. I don't wanna. I'll come off paper sometimes. No lies here, or off my phone or whatever. But on stage, right, that's not an option, right? This isn't orchestra where I've got sheet music and I'm reading, I've been in the game, it's like you gotta rock it, plus you gotta be moving around. I'm super animated when I rap, as you can tell even just in this interview when I'm talking to you. I'm like, people always like, can you talk? You're talking like you're rapping. I'm like, that's just how I get into it. But yeah, on stage I try to be as hyper and animated as possible, and also shift, so sometimes I might just be still and I'm making a serious point or doing a introspective song, and then I shift out of that and it's back to the hypeness, get out your seats, come on with me, make sure you're bouncing. So yeah, it's definitely a different thought process and kind of execution between studio and live.
Okay, definitely.
But like I said, in the 10 rap commandments, this comes from the heart and the spirit. When you do a show, please don't rap over your lyrics. Maybe just the hook, or a word or two, but rapping over your
Yes,
whole verse,
indeed. Yes, indeed.
no can do. So that's how I feel anyway.
Shout out to another MC educator, Marcel P. Black. He says this all the time, and it's so true.
Word up.
Mm. You have worked with YZ, Poor Righteous Teachers, more than once. I think the first time was on Connect the Dots with the definition of a great mind, and
So
then go
yeah,
ahead.
and prior to that, actually, on the Zimbabwe Legit House of Stone, worked with YZ on uh, Vicious Circle. And
That's
that was
right.
that's the first
That's
time we
right.
worked together, and that was like mind blowing because I'd been, we'd been in touch for a long time, and we finally got to like link. And I mean, he smashed that song. Like he just took it to another level. So appreciate that brother like so much, because YZ's like a dope MC. And if you're
Hmm.
talking about like the era we were talking about, when he came out with Thinking of a Master Plan, and then when I was in college at Virginia Tech on college radio, WUVT, I'd have YZ's records in heavy rotation. The Ghetto's Been Good to Me, so many different songs that he had. Um, we'd play, and we'd actually, when we was as Zimbabwe Legit, back in the day, so like probably early to mid 90s, maybe, probably like
Hmm.
93, 94, had talked to YZ because he had a management company when he was in New York called 720. And so we'd been talking to him about managing Zimbabwe Legit. I went back to
Oh,
school. He ended up moving to Atlanta. So we had lost touch. So it was great when we got back in touch and
nice.
have been collaborating and connecting ever since. And he's such a great and gracious brother, man. You know what I mean? Because a lot of folks can be like, yeah, you know what? I don't feel like collaborating. I've got my own thing going on. But he's always like, hey, this family business. Let me know what you need. What we're trying to do. And he always, everything he gets on, I feel like he brings another level to it. He's obviously a veteran, skilled, talented MC with a lot of good things to say. So it's always good to
Absolutely,
connect
all the
with him.
time.
So there's actually an unreleased joint with me, YZ, and Speech from Arrested Development that's going to be on the full
Oh,
length album. And that joint is bonkers. That's crazy. It's also featuring Elder Sensei from Artifacts. So
wow.
when y'all hear that early next year when that full length drops, like I feel like minds will be blown because every time I listen back to it, my mind is blown. So, but
Mm.
yeah, real cool brother. And I know I said a lot, but like I said,
Nah, it's all good. Let
he's
the people
he's
know.
he's one of the coolest, man. Talk about give flowers to the OGs. YZ, one of the first independent record store owners, production companies. Like he's been moving, man. He's definitely one of the cats that we need to give flowers to and show some respect.
Definitely, definitely. And as we lead on to Life is What You Make It, another artist that's on the latest single is also Chub Rock, who you worked with in the past as well.
Word up. Yeah, another cool brother, man. Like it's so great. You know how they say like, oh, what happens when you meet your idols? Is it gonna live up to like what you thought?
Hmm.
And with these guys, it exceeded my wildest expectations. Because when I was a freshman at Virginia Tech, Chub Rock was on the dance floor, rotating, getting people on the dance floor heavy. That Treat 'em Right like was the
Hmm.
joint. Like that was like that comes on, dance floor never empty. Um, and so getting to work with him, subsequent to that was like a beautiful thing. And then obviously Back to the Grill Again, Through the Storm, all his hits. So many to mention. But 1990, Chubb Rock jumps upon the scene with the lean and a pocket full of green, and then be like, "Yo, I'm actually doing a joint with him." So we did a song. We've actually done 3 joints. And again, abundance of riches, like so many blessings. Because we did a song called "Wake 'Em Up" with Vast Air from Cannibal Ox with Chubb
Hmm.
Rock, and then he
Yep.
got on the song that I did called "We Don't Need No More Trouble." Um, that was also like great. But yeah, so he's on Life Is What You Make It. And he actually like influenced the whole direction of that song. And I'm not shy to say like the
Really?
song is called No Guarantees, and it's basically talking about, I have a song called No Guarantees, basically talking about, make sure you let people know that you appreciate them while they're living, because when we
Hmm.
lose somebody, sometimes that's when it hits us. So we need to let them know that they're loved while they're, and that we appreciate them while they're still with us. And so
Yeah.
I hit up
Don't
Chubbla
hold
because I
it
was
back.
gonna do a remix of it, and was like, hey, love to have you on the song. This is what it's about. And then he was traveling and touring and busy, and so like some time had passed, and I got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to finalize this track, like, I'm running out of time. So I was like, well, let me hit him back up and just see like if we can make this happen. And so when I hit him up, he was like, yo, just send me the track again. And he's like, give me a call. And we were like talking about like what the concept was. And then we also talking about, hey, it is the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And, it's important that we acknowledge and recognize and all of this stuff, and pay tribute and pay homage, in addition, to people who are talking about giving people their flowers while they're still living. So he's like, yeah, I got it. I'm gonna hit you back, record it and lace it and send it back to you. And he was originally just gonna do the hook, and he hit me back like same day, I think, or later that day, maybe the next day, with the hook. And he's like, "Yo, I did a verse too. If you like it, we can run with it." And I was like, "Oh, I love it," or whatever. And I listened to what he said, and I was like, "Oh, dope! Like this is like a whole, like this is how we, like, as KRS said, if we're gonna do a remix, then we must remix it." So like he changed it up based on that conversation and laced the hook like lovely. Again, like I said, exceeding expectations, um, even better than I had imagined it would be. So that was dope. He cooked that up, sent it my way. I got my verse recorded, reached out to YZ and was like, yo, this is what we doing. Are you in? He was like, oh yeah, don't take off without me. I'm definitely down. He put his input in. And then one of the biggest influences for me in getting into hip hop in the first place and starting to rap, and how you, when starting out, I started by rapping other people's lyrics and rhymes. Initially listening to Rakim, obviously listening to Melly Mel, the Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, The Message, and like listening to those raps. But a huge influence was Chuck D from Public Enemy, because I felt like he just
There you go.
changed the game with one, dropping knowledge, right? Like we're talking
Yep.
about coming, with a mission to, let people know something. And so he kind of had the blueprint. And, like I said, a huge influence, just even just musically, and kind of how he put together all the different concepts for the different albums Public Enemy had. So I knew in my mind like I needed Chuck D on this song. Like that would just round it out. Um, More than just a career highlight. Like he was like gonna be the perfect person to kind of sum it all up. And since I was working with Spit Slam Records, which is Chuck D situation as they
Yep.
describe it, it's a label and guild of artists that he initiated, or was the inception of. I was like, hey, it'll only be right. It makes sense. And so, man, so blessed to have him grace the song, and lace the outro of it. And so I'm like, man, this is it. This is how we coming. And then a cat that I've been actually trying to connect with for years, Dre King, plays trumpet, and I was like, hey, this is the moment we've been waiting for. We've been missing each other and trying to collaborate and connect, but like I need you to add some spice to this song. And then of course C Doc from Spit Slam produced the joint, in real dope fashion. So it's just amazing how it came together. Like again, a series of amazing coincidences and fortunate events. But as they say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So I was prepared and ready, and the pieces fell together and the planets lined up.
Yeah, it's amazing about that track too. Is when I first listened to it, and reading it, and then seeing who's on there, you get a certain type of anticipation, and then listening to it, it's just what they bring to the music, and everything fit well.
And I mean, I think I've listened, I've been listening all year long and I've heard some good stuff. But to me, this is the official theme song of the anniversary of hip hop, the unofficial, because nobody's stamped it that way. But I think it
Mm.
should be the official, like, because I love how Chub Rock summed up his experience through the people he was influenced by, but also worked with Hitman Howie T, but also, giving props to Sha Rock and Melly Mel. And then I broke down the people that influenced me and how I got into it. And obviously, even starting just from within my own household with my oldest brother and his records. And then YZ bringing it all home, talking about all the people that have fallen, you know, um, from the culture and, in hip hop, all the fallen. And then, of course, like I said, the maestro himself, Chuck D, kind of just summing it all up and essentially accepting the honors and the homage and the gratitude on behalf of the OGs, which is very appropriate because who else, who better than Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, hip hop luminary and icon Chuck D to close it out and wrap it up and put a bow on the flowers, if so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah, and we can't leave out that this release is a maxi single. So not only is there
Indeed.
another track, Knew It All, but you got a Diamond D remix on there.
Yep, yep. Let me
You got
get to
the
that.
extended version. Let them know. There
I'm
you
sure
go.
we can take a look at it or whatever, but
Yes,
just to
indeed.
see, because it's actually crazy. Because Spit Slam does CDs on demand, so if people go to Spit Slam Records, they can actually order a CD.
Yep. I'll put the link for everyone to go
Yeah,
check it out and support.
dope, dope. I love. By the way, as a side note, I love the multimedia. Like your intro was crazy. I was like, oh, that intro,
Thanks.
that showing you the multimedia that y'all got going on, and obviously with the links in real time. But yeah, and then obviously it's available on digital, like on all platforms. Spotify, Tidal, Amazon, you name it, Apple Music, and everything. I always tell people, like we said with the Bandcamp, domiright.bandcamp.com is the best way to get the product from the artist, because then I'm not getting like a fraction of a penny for a stream, right? I'm getting the cost of the album that we sell, and it goes direct to the artist, minus whatever, like a set sales fee, but a lot more bang for the buck than a stream would ever get. So that's important. If folks want to support, they can download the digital maxi single. Like you said, it's a Diamond D remix on there. It's two versions of Knew It All, including producer out of France, uh, DJ Moore, and then M Rock version of the song, and then Soul City remix of Life Is What You Make It, as well as the Diamond D remix, as well as the instrumentals of both songs on there. So it's a lot. It's a nice tight package that you get. A lot of bang for your buck on that one. And like I said, I know people don't really generally in mass numbers cop CDs, but for me, I love having something physical that I own that I can go back to, versus just, oh, it's out on some site somewhere and I can go listen to it on demand. So yeah, folks can order CDs, which is cool, and they do them on demand, which is smart, right? So I'm not pressing up 10,000 of them sitting in my basement in a box that I'm gonna have to be
Yep.
like, oh, what do I need to do with them? It's like you order it, We got a company that presses them up and sends them, and it's got artwork, jewel case, the whole nine
All
yards
set.
too.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the best
it's
way
good.
to go.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I got to give a shout out to Napoleon the Legend because he's the one that put me on to DJ Moore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, DJ Moore is ill. And again, I met DJ Moore just through networking, through a cat that we were talking about working together, and I heard a beat on his project. And he was like, I was like, who produced that? He's like, DJ Moore. I'm like, where's he at? He's like, France. I'm like, oh, word? I'm like, link me up with him. And we linked up, and Moore was like, yeah, I'm doing this record with Sadat X and Elder Sensei and a bunch of other people. Do you want to get on it? I'm like, sure, I want to get on it, but let me get some of them beats too. So, you know what I mean? We did the collaboration thing. Yeah, so it's real cool. Again, that international collabo. He's out in Nantes, France, which I've been to, but I haven't met him. Just
Okay.
online through the
Mm.
digital, but dope boom bap hip hop producer. And it's cool because on the his version of Knew It All on the maxi single, he sent me the beat. I wrote to the beat, came up with it, and I was like, this needs something else. It needs something like I don't know what it is. You're the producer, just but it needs like some vibes. Like it needs something like to just round
Yeah.
it out. And he's like, oh yeah, let me ask my dad. He plays saxophone. I'll have him come to the studio and lay something down. And he sent me the video of it, and I was just like, how crazy is this? Me and this cat are collaborating. He calls his dad into the session to play saxophone, samples up his dad, and throws it in the track, and real beautiful.
Yeah. Hmm. And this maxi single is leading up to your upcoming album, Forward to the Future.
Yes, full length. Um, and it's cool. Like I called it Forward to the Future, and it's forward like
Hmm.
FOREWORD as opposed to like forward, but obviously it's a double entendre, play on words, and obviously call back, throwback to back to the future. But here we're going forward to the future. Um, but it's the forward, so it's like the preamble, like the
Hmm.
intro to the future, because obviously we're at a crossroads, right? It's technology and music and society, really. Community is just changing drastically and rapidly. So, what's about to happen? What's the future? And what does that mean for artists, musicians, people, for hip hop? And so that's kind of the premise of the album that's coming up. And then what we're gonna do too, it's gonna come out on Spit Slam. We're gonna do vinyl because I feel like the collectors and people who purchase vinyl, like we were talking about physical goods, really appreciate it and really want it and really want that whole package and not just like, oh, I'm just gonna get a single off of it. It's like the whole project. So we'll put it out on vinyl first, so the collectors and people who really love and appreciate music can have at it, exclusively first, and get their fill. And then once the vinyl's been out for a little bit, we'll go obviously to all the other platforms because there's some people who just want to consume it different ways. So we want to make sure everybody can get to it eventually. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It's done. Just approved the masters some weeks ago, so that's in the pipeline. Getting ready to come at y'all, and I just love for people to like get it like worldwide. My brother said he went to Japan, and people were asking him like, "Oh, Zimbabwe, Chip, what's going on? What's coming up? What are you up to?" Like from
Hmm.
years ago, you know what I mean? That project was 30 years ago, but that's how timeless the music is. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to putting out this new Dumi Right dope, so people can get it, cop it, listen to it, vibe with it, and just feel it.
That's the way it should be. Definitely, definitely looking forward to that. Mm. You've worked with a fellow Zimbabwe artist, outspoken. Um, are there any other artists in the country or neighboring countries that you would like to give some light to?
Yeah, me, Outspoken, and a young dude coming up called Psychotech on a couple of songs actually. And it's been real cool just working with them. One, because they're like mad talented, and it's just been fun. And I just love, their lyrical ability and skills, and kind of the concepts and styles too, because we got like really different styles. So we've been working on a couple things actually, and we were like, yo, after we got into like 4 or 5 songs, it's like, you know what, maybe we should put a project out. So that's kind of going to be in the works possibly,
All right.
coming up. But yeah, so we've been working on stuff. But yeah, super nice. And Outspoken is like an activist, raptivist, if you will, to quote. I think that's a KRS term, but like activist rap artist. Real dope. One of my favorite MCs from the continent is Mode 9 from Nigeria. Like,
Mode
he's
9.
just a
Okay.
beast. And he's like a boom bap. He's got the words, he's got the lyrics, he's got the conceptual. Super dope. Like, he's really fresh. And then, I think definitely like through the Hip Hop Loves Collective, shout out to Hip Hop Loves, like, there's a bunch of artists on the different projects that we've done from many different countries. So I really encourage people to check that out. All the projects on Bandcamp as well as Spotify under Hip
Mhm.
Hop Loves. But yeah, there's some real dope MCs. Maya Jupiter out of Cali, originally from Australia. Exodus Payne out of the UK. Um, just a gazillion artists, like a whole bunch of real dope and fresh artists with, again, different styles, perspectives that are just really hitting them hard and heavy. That really folks should check out. Definitely highly recommend it.
Great, great. I'm definitely gonna look up those names later on because I'm writing some notes down as you've been
Oh, cool.
giving me some things to go dig down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure.
'Cause I always appreciate someone putting put me onto a fellow artist to go listen to. Um, Earlier this year, you performed at the Kennedy Center. Tell us about the Hip Hop Odyssey.
Yeah, now that was another dope experience. And what's been cool is kind of how the performance opportunities, but even the visions for the shows have expanded. So I feel like that was like not the first time, but one of the first times where I just had like a blank canvas to come up with a concept. And like I said, I don't like to just come and perform and just be like song, 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 song. Like, I like a theme. I like some kind of experience. And so, kind of leveraging the idea, the concept, 2001, A Space Odyssey, which was talking about the future of, humanity and technology and outer space. And I did 2023, A Hip Hop Odyssey. And I used it to chronicle my journey musically as an artist and as a performer. And so starting out with some of those early tracks with as Zimbabwe Legit and those influences. So having a live djembe player on stage and a singer rocking back and forth with the musicians. But then I also brought like a full ensemble. So I had
Yeah.
kind of like the murderer's row of singers, all the different artists, vocalists that I've collaborated with. So like 4 vocalists actually backing up, saxophone player, guitar, obviously the DJ, a drummer,
RBI.
a
Yep.
regular, yeah, DJ RBI, and then regular like drum kit drummer as well as a hand drummer, and then just kind of going through different stages of my musical experience. Starting like I said with Zimbabwe Legit to the different songs with Dumi Right to like some of the newer songs and concepts, and kind of taking people on a journey and kind of going through, and a lot of the music that I do could be described as like protest music. So I'm leveraging like the sample from the civil rights movement. I ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. The song we talked about that I did the collabo with Chubb Rock. We don't need no more trouble, which is obviously a homage to Bob Marley, No More Trouble, and just going through, doing the anthem that's part of my repertoire, liberation music. So just kind of going through all those different stages and doing that at the Kennedy Center is like always like a incredible venue, obviously an auspicious venue. It was really cool because we sold it out and then we opened it up and
Wow.
added more tickets and we sold that out. Um, so sold out show at the Kennedy Center, and just being able to do that presentation and having the resources and kind of the place to be able to do it, and add in the multimedia backdrop and everything, and just have those different elements, but also do it very differently from shows that I've done before, where I wasn't just redoing the same set. So super cool. It was definitely cool. And then we haven't talked about, but I'm an adjunct at the George Washington University, leading a hip hop ensemble, and so students from George Washington came to the show. So I ran into some of them like right before and during and after, and it was cool to see, because they know about me and they've seen online the stuff that I've done, but they actually got to be, physically there to see the show.
Witness
Um,
you in action. Yeah,
right,
that's
and
amazing.
see how we get down and all the stuff that I'm talking about. This is how we put it in action. So that was real cool. And the Kennedy Center is like, as far as like a back line and like the stage setup and all of that is pristine and impeccable. So it's always fun to rock there because it's gonna sound good.
Yeah,
And then it also reaches an audience, that again may not
may
necessarily
not.
come out
Hmm.
to the 9:30 Club or may not even know Dumi Right. They might just be fans of the Kennedy Center concert series, and so they're coming out because they know, oh, if it's at the Kennedy Center, it's going to be something cool.
Something. Hmm.
Um, and I went through, like I was talking about, doing like the code beats, and like I explained some of that stuff, as part of the show too. Broke down how I spit those rhymes and how that went. So it was real cool, like a real encompassing experience, kind of like the story of Do Me Right in 60 minutes, in 59 minutes, and 59 seconds.
Yeah, and I definitely enjoyed it. I actually I cast it to my TV. Sat down and watched the
Oh,
whole thing.
wow.
So I
Okay.
definitely got to enjoy that.
Oh,
And for
for
those
sure.
who haven't seen it, I put the link in the comments, as you can see in the bottom. Go check that out as well.
Word. Yeah. Now that's
Definitely an
like
experience.
definitely a highlight performance experience for me because, like I said, just from the beginning to thinking about, and the ensemble members, the band members were like, "What songs are we doing? What's that?" And I was like, "Give me some time. I just need to," because I was really writing out like a story. Like, okay, where did we begin? What should come first? Like, how should we? Like, what's the arc of the show? Like, where do we go? I didn't want to just be like, oh, song, 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 song. Hey, I've been Do Me Right, and I'm out. And so it's like the hip hop odyssey, like taking the audience with me on a journey, through my musical experience. And it was cool because I was able to have an elaborate cast, if you will, of people, participating and backing me up for the show. So, and I felt like even just performance wise, I put all the lessons I've learned over the years from watching the greats and performing with the greats and performing with myself, from the open mic set to from the high school show in Zimbabwe to the Whitney Museum to the Japan tour that I told you about to this radio station to this smoky club, and bring it all to a head in that Kennedy Center experience and be like, this is what I've been training for. This is what all the work has been for, to finally be able to present my rep, as they say, on that stage at that time.
Sorry. That's great. Where did the title Global Hip Hop Ambassador come into play? Where and when, I should say.
Um, so I think informally, I was kind of doing it and didn't know I was doing it as the global hip hop ambassador, but had been working, I'd say, early 2000s, I guess it was, or maybe whatever, 20, I'll call it, let's just say 2008, let's pick a year. 2008, 2010, maybe. Started working on different initiatives with a collective of people in DC that were in the space of international development, music, art, culture. And so we actually did a series of events called Voices, and it was an acronym that stood for Voices Organizing for International Change and Elevation, Voices and Solutioning. I probably messed that up. Apologies, but so we had a series of events called Voices, but it was basically amplifying the voices of grassroots organizations that use arts and culture to assist youth globally. So, for
Mhm.
example, we worked with the Bavubuka Foundation, which is in Uganda, and has hip hop events, b-boying, rapping, and different things to engage the youth and give them things to do and teach them self expression. We worked with Performing Arts Bolivia, which is an organization in Bolivia that teaches circus arts and also dance and through music to youth to get them off the streets and get them involved and give them pathways and ideas of ways to, to, to be creative and express themselves. We did Walking with Angels, which is in East Africa, and they help with like health, I think also like AIDS prevention and care and healthcare, but also through arts and culture. And so what we're doing is we do a series, like a monthly event, where we'd highlight the organization. We'd have somebody either locally speaking about the organization and their mission
Mhm.
and what they do. We'd have a DJ. We'd have food. We'd spread awareness, but also collect funds, to give to that organization. And so it was doing things like that. I can't even remember how many of those we did, but doing work like that, doing the collaborations with MCs in different countries. I have a song called All Over the Map with an MC from South Africa, an MC from Ghana, an MC from Botswana. And so it's doing all of that. And then I think it was, uh, folks were kind of being like, yo, you're like this international hip hop connector. Like, you're rocking with all these people from all over the world. And I'm like, well, that's my background. That's kind of how I came up. That's where I'm from. I'm from the international hip hop world, so I feel like a spokesperson. Like I feel
Right.
like
Hmm.
a good representative. I feel like an emissary. And then when we did the
Definitely
next
are.
level cultural exchange, they were like, "Yeah, nah, as a as an envoy from the Department of State, you're actually a cultural ambassador." And I was like, "Bam." I need to make sure that's formally noted. You know what I mean? It's not just, you know, something that I did or something, because it has been a huge part of my experience for many years, and it's formally so now, more than ever before.
That's great, man. Um, how how can we stay informed of any seminars, any classes that you have, any events that you've spoken about during this interview?
Yeah. Now the best way, I finally launched it, so I'm gonna big it up all day long. DumiWrite.com. I finally got my website. Everyone's been like, "Yo, you need your own property. Like, get it," and I've got it. Social media is great, but obviously having your own, you can kind of manage it and not be subject to the algorithm. So,
Mm,
DumiWrite.com.
okay.
Um, is definitely the place to go to find out all things. And through that, you can jump off to probably where I'm the most active in terms of posting either uh, music or media or events. Is Instagram. just because that platform lends itself to kind of like post it up in short form. And I'm Dumi Right on Instagram, so Instagram.com/DumiRight or at Dumi Right, DumiRight. That's kind of a good place. And then also on Facebook and YouTube, you can find Do Me Right. But yeah, those are the main spots. I think if you're on my Instagram, if you're on my IG, follow, and you'll see through the stories, through reels, like I post up, new music, clips of things as they come. And then obviously the website will have kind of everything, including links to shows, links to albums, and links to merchandise. Like these are actually like the Do Me Right logo. You can get it on a shirt through the Bandcamp. But again, if you're on the website dumiright.com, you can get to it, and I'll have a link tree on the Instagram where you can jump off and order you a shirt, Do Me Right shirt or a Zimbabwe Legit shirt. And people realize that we're like, oh, that's like artists really get income from merchandise sales.
Yes, let them know.
And product, right? Like the streaming is like an advertisement. It's like you looked in a magazine and saw a picture that said, "Do Me Right new album." That's kind of what streaming is. It lets you hear it. You decide if you like it. You can listen to it over and over again. But in terms of support for the artist, merchandise is how we come up. Like, 'cause that's somebody buys like a T-shirt, that's probably like a good 10,000 streams. You know what I mean? So you can stream it 10,000 times, or you can buy a T-shirt. Like
Yeah.
you see the difference, and not to be like you have to buy a T-shirt. It's to each his own, but just letting you know, like in terms of the mileage or the bang for the buck in terms of supporting artists, it's really through the merchandise that we can really come up, and get the income to cover the costs and expenses and to continue to be able to continue to do what we do as artists. So I definitely love the fact that we can do direct to consumer sales and marketing to have them cop stuff, be it the CD, be it T-shirt, be it even a download, but it's a direct download from Bandcamp where there's actually monetary compensation that's more than a fraction of a penny for each time you get it. So yeah, definitely if folks want to do that. But if not, follow along, see the progress. Like I said, it's some real exciting stuff happening coming up for 2024. So folks, definitely follow along because it's all happening. Like, we're not standing still. We're definitely going to be rocking. I mentioned I was just at Virginia Tech in November, alma mater, speaking on a panel. In January, I'm going to be doing a series of performances and workshops, part of an event that's happening at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And I'm sure we'll be posting video and clips and photos from that event. So that's going to be super exciting. And then probably in the month of January, we'll be doing something with Voice of America, on air, live performance interview, and then a million other things that are in the works that will be coming up as well. Not excluding the album, right? Forward to the future. We definitely want people to check out.
Will you be performing and speaking again with what's her name? Kiana Lioness Smith?
Yeah, we talked about connecting, like just as alma mater, and as hip hop, whatever you call it, veterans of the Virginia Tech, Virginia Tech community, Virginia Tech hip hop studies. So yeah, definitely open to doing more and more. And she's dope. She's a dope MC and definitely is doing a lot of dope work. So always good to connect with like-minded people whenever the opportunity arises.
That's great. And one last thing to speak about, and being that you mentioned the importance of merchandise and how this really helps the artist. House of Stone vinyl through Chop Herring Records.
Oh yes, indeed. Yes. How could we forget? How could I forget? Yeah, and it was cool because when House of Stone came out, it came out just on CD, just
Hmm.
because of the partners I was working with and the opportunities, and never came out on vinyl. And I was always like bothered by that, like because I'd always wanted to. And then when I connected with Chopped Herring, they were like talking about like the new record I was doing, and they were saying they more do like reissues
Right.
of records. That's kind of their specialty in their
Hmm.
client and audience base. And they were like, "Yo, your album
Demos
House of
and
Stone
everything.
was super dope." They're like, "Did that ever come out on vinyl?" I was like, "Funny that you should mention that because I always wanted to, but it never did." And they were like, "Oh, it would be cool to take a collection of those songs, and if there's any other like B-sides or unreleased things that we could throw in there um, for the masses to check out." And then like instrumentals, because those never came out either. Um, and so they wanted to do it. We talked, and again, it was like a real good business uh, partnership in doing that. It made sense to do it, and I definitely was eager to have that project out on vinyl because I knew there was lots of people who'd love to have that out. So yeah, the House of Stone on vinyl is super dope. House of Stone Revisited. That's like real cool that that was able to come out because there's some like super uncut dope on that, like the Where I'm At with the Jungle Brothers, including a remix.
Hmm.
Um, the Evil That Men Do with Prince Poe from
Yep.
Organized Confusion, Stickman from Dead Prez. Like, there's some
Take
real,
Back the Mic.
yeah,
Man.
yeah. And Take Back the Mic obviously being a play on words with Take Back the Night, but saying like take back the mic, like let's address it, like this is ours, like let's make sure we don't lose control to the corporate structure of
Mm.
this thing, this powerful, potent tool that we invented, as a culture and as a community. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Big
that's
ups to
super
Bob
dope.
over at Chop Herring because he's not just a businessman. He is a hip hop fan and supporter. So
Yeah,
he actually, like you said, you had a good, talking business agreement with him because he's that type of person to ask you about things like that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'm real glad we connected with them, and they put out so many dope projects, and so I know people are checking with them to see what the new is. So it's also good to run with somebody that's putting out other dope stuff because then people, you kind of fall into that circuit of like, oh,
Yep.
I didn't know about this, but I know Chopped Herring's got that dope product. Let me see what they got coming out now. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
they got the House of Stone. Okay, yeah. And fun fact for people listening, Zimbabwe actually means House of Stone because that's the origin of the word from the ancient stone city of Zimbabwe, houses of stone. So that's why that album was called House of Stone. There
Ah,
you have it.
that's a good one right there. I hope y'all paid attention to that one.
Yeah.
Mm. Do me right. Definitely appreciate you taking the time. We look forward to the future. To the future, and you know you're doing a very important thing for our culture in educating in this way because what others see in other countries is a lot of mainstream, and with the mainstream comes a certain type of assumption when it comes to hip hop,
Yeah.
and it's not the full embrace of hip hop music and the culture. So I appreciate what you continue to do. The links are in the comments to go to Dumi Wright's website and stay informed of what will continue to go on. And thank you again.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, man. I love to leave with this word. Um, Living life fast won't be no more, cause it's not just me no more. I got daughters plus orders from headquarters to be home by dark. I stop and think about the state of the art, reminisce about the days and times I started rolling. That was an age and a stage that was golden, holding the mic, controlling the dice like Mantronics, back when the X-Man was a Seattle supersonic. From freaks come out at night to jam on it. When I heard hip hop, I knew exactly what I wanted, to be a part of the scene. It was all a dream. Then I ended up in Word Up magazine, energized to exercise the vibes that's unclean, done by the forces of nature that's unseen. So before I rest, I survey the progress. Thanks for coming out. Good night and God bless.
And with that being said, HHDG Media, we're gonna say peace.
Peace.